Welcome back to Hoeffelhohman FC. This is episode 7. We are going into chapter 11 of Bring the Noise. I am joined again with my co-host, Nick Hohman. Welcome.
Hey guys, I'm here once again, ready to dive into another exciting chapter of Dortmund side this time. 2010 and 2013.
Yep, so whenever you listen to the episode we do chapter 10 and say it's the best one, that's now a lie. Because now it's this one. Maybe because it's more present in my mind, but I don't know. It could be apples and oranges, but it's definitely up there.
It's a very good one.
I felt like I was along for the ride, but so I did when he was at mine, so maybe I just love Jürgen Klopp. And now I love all these teams too.
We hope some of you have already bought the book and are catching up. Enjoy the magic.
But, soccer news briefly. The leagues have begun. I watched part of the Liverpool game, and there was a bald man and not Jürgen Klopp on the sideline.
No Kloppo.
So I know Mainz had to go through that, and Dortmund had to go through that, and now Liverpool is going through that. But now there is no more Klopp as of now anywhere. No. So at least if you were a big fan, you would I'm going to go see what he's going to build next. There is not that project.
I think he officially said he is pretty much done with coaching.
Mm-hmm. So you got Mbappe's playing at Real Madrid.
But as you'll find out in this book, that Klopp changes his mind about things.
Yeah, so I think he says he's done. Give it 2 years of nothing, and then he's gonna get fidgety because the energy will return. And where will that energy go? If not coaching, but doing some kind of project. Even just I'm going to coach the bottom, whatever town I live in, that Bundesliga forward team we just saw. Let's just coach that team. It's going to be a lot less stressful. And I'm just never going to move up again. I'm only going to stay here. If the club gets too big, then I'm going to leave. We got promoted twice, guys. I gotta go. I can't.
My work is done here.
Bye. No, you can't leave. No. You can't. There's no money.
It hasn't been 7 years yet.
In U.S. news, you got Pochettino taking over the helm of the U.S. guys. You got pretty much both ex-Chelsea coaches. One didn't get fired. I don't think the woman got fired. I think she just took the job. I don't know the story, but Pochettino was sacked and then I don't know her name.
For the
women's. Oh, both ex-Chelsea.
Emma Hayes.
Did she get fired, or did she just contractually go, it's on to the next thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was at the Chelsea's women team for a while.
Yeah.
She did an amazing job with, she is a very good coach.
And they won gold, so there you go.
Yeah.
She knows what she's doing.
Yeah, she does.
I think Pochettino knows what he's doing. I know Kyle has less confidence in him because he was at Tottenham and Chelsea and these clubs that notoriously do weird things in soccer. But I think his ability to coach young players should not be underestimated, and that's all US is. It's pretty young. You can get the best out of people.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping to see. We can't get worse, so I don't think we could get worse. So I think we'll be playing.
I think he'll
better.
Do a good job.
I don't know what results will come, but I think it'll be better. So that's exciting. I'm excited about it because that's a big name. He's coached in a Champions League final.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. And I can't hate him for losing the Champions League final because it was to Liverpool. So it's okay. You're allowed to lose that final in my book. But, like I said, Mbappe's at Real Madrid now, and Ancelotti's got another AC Milan-looking team of old that just has all the stars everywhere, and even still holding on to Luka Modric, who's 38, which we thought he was old. We thought he was a little older, but he still just keeps running, and it's pretty unbelievable. But I know I just read that Liverpool tried to sign Ilkay Gundogan, which... I bring up because he'll be talked about today, but he turned it down. But apparently he wants to leave Barcelona. I thought maybe he would accept it in the sense that we're not playing a press and you're older. We're trying to hold the ball. You like that. You were at Man City. Just come and play, please. But I imagine after playing for City, you don't want to play for Liverpool because of how much that rivalry has developed. If that hadn't happened between Klopp and Pep and the back and forth of titles, I think going from City to Liverpool is not a big deal. But now it is. Now it's like you don't go from United to City. You don't go from United to Liverpool. But now because of the competing for titles all the time, now you don't go from Liverpool to City or vice versa. Which is, there was a rumor that
go from Dortmund to Bayern in some cases.
Well, I don't know how it works in Germany, but
well, it's already happened.
Right.
Unfortunately.
But anyway, we just watched a little bit of Nuri Sahin's debut as coach, which he is literally the first words in this chapter. So bringing that up, and that's
been such like a full 360 with that, man, especially since
they win 4-1 over some 4th division team. So we were watching the highlights before we started this. So without further ado, Nuri Sahin, Mats Hummels, Marcel Schmelzer, Neven Subotic, and Sven Bender look at each other and started giggling in disbelief, like schoolboys who had just pulled off the most elaborate prank on their teacher. The moment lasted only 2 seconds, says Hummels, but it felt like 2 hours. The 80,000 punch-drunk screaming supporters on the terraces were shaking the Signal Iduna Park so hard that time itself became unstuck. Stadium announcer Norbert Dickel had set off the earthquake, crying out that Köln were up 2-0 at Leverkusen, Dortmund's last remaining rival for the top spot. BVB were leading 2-0 against FC Nuremberg, only 20 minutes away from winning the Bundesliga title with 2 games to spare. We knew then that we had done it, but couldn't quite comprehend it, says Hummels, of the unforgettable day in April of 2011. So a junior in high school. Subotic, we were babies. Most of us weren't even 23 yet. That's crazy. So I'm like 17, and these guys are like 23, just about to get on top of the mountain. We had no idea what was happening to us. We knew we were there, but we didn't quite know how we got there and what being there actually meant. Bender, I had goosebumps like never before in my life. It was a brutally emotional moment, a realization. We, a bunch of kids, had done it. Looking back, I'm almost sad I couldn't enjoy it more. But it was too unreal and over too quickly to take us into its entirety. Klopp was equally unable to fully appreciate the occasion. I thought it could feel better, more euphoric, he said, almost apologetically. Perhaps the pressure on us was a little stronger than we were prepared to admit. Now, I'm just going to take a little break there, but I'm going to keep reading from this section because I just think the intro, this is the longest thing that I have underlined. This is not, Dortmund they were already a big club, but as we read before, they were literally on the brink of collapse. So it was not good times, and Klopp is turning it over on a new leaf with just a bunch of bringing people from Mainz and signing 20-year-olds and 21-year-olds and signing center backs that are surplus to requirements at Bayern Munich and just bringing in the players that work for him, striking gold with Lewandowski and all of that we'll continue to talk about. But this is why it's so epic. For everyone else, the minutes, hours, and days afterwards were a blur. Do you know how to say this dude's name? Kevin
Grosskreutz.
Grosskreutz. Running around with a partially shaved head like a madman. The batteries of the electric razor had run out. Keeper Roman Weidenfeller telling Al Jazeera reporter in a hilarious mix of German and English, "We have a grandiose Saisongrespelt." Fans hugging, crying, 500,000 people in the streets of Dortmund. Beer, champagne, 2 weeks of emergency rule. BVB president Reinhard Rubel, it was total ecstasy, impossible to put into words. And this is a club that's won before, so this is even crazier than before. Hummel says, you had a town mad about football, a club mad about football, and a coach in Klopp who always put the supporters at the heart of the things in a very extreme manner. The combination of all of that created an energy that people still talk about today and will never stop talking about. Sebastian Kohl, one of the handful of players over 30, had experience winning the title with Dortmund before. In 2002, as had Weidenfeller. Borussia's financial near-death experience in the intervening years made the 2010-11 league win more special still, he explains. To see the joy in people's eyes after they had been worried for so long about the future of the club and had wished for glory days to return, we felt so incredibly happy for them. We were able to give them something in return to them after all those difficult years. I think people there had never forgotten and will never forget it either. Nothing had prepared anyone of the black and yellow disposition for this triumph. No disrespect to the guys from the 1950s, but in my view, this is the biggest success in the history of the club, said Michael Zorc. The sporting director had won the Champions League with Borussia as a player in 1997, but felt that this side, the youngest ever Bundesliga champions, had achieved more. That's crazy. No one expected us to have a chance, let alone dominate the league to such an extent. When we won previous titles, we were at least among the favorites. Another Europa League spot had been seen as a realistic target for a team without expensive stars. Striker Robert Lewandowski commanding the only significant outlay, and the coach who had never come near a trophy as a player or manager before. It's a kind of a summary of the whole chapter, but it just really captures how immense what is happening is. That's why I wanted to read that in its entirety. And, I have just underlined underneath that couple paragraphs I read is just the arrival of Lewandowski. Because everybody knows who that guy is now. Obviously, he's on the latter end of his career, but from Dortmund on, he only scores almost a goal a game.
Yeah, very consistent player. And I think it goes into somewhere like they're talking about Lewandowski and just what the kind of player that he is. He's like never the player to like kiss the badge, but like he's just a machine that will just play the game as hard as he can and get some goals.
I don't need the Kloppo stuff. I score.
Yeah.
I score goals. But a mix of that, so they got Lewandowski, another player that people probably know, Shinji Kagawa, who I did not know who was bought from the Japanese second division.
Yeah.
And then 18-year-old Mario Götze, the son of an IT professor and product of the Borussia youth system, a Borussia boy into a man, which I didn't know as well. Which makes it all the more heartbreaking as we get into it.
Yeah, I've got a whole article for you to read about that too.
That's what I mean. When we get to it, I was like, I actually felt heartbroken, and
it was wild, man. It was wild. Like nobody saw that coming. I mean, this chapter we'll talk about, so we'll get to it.
They believed in it. They lived it. They had signed up for it too. Ahead of the campaign, Klopp asked his players to put their name to a promise containing 7 rules. BVB players agreed to unconditional dedication, passionate devotion, a determination to win, independent of the scoreline, a readiness to support everybody, a readiness to accept help, a readiness to put their quality wholly at the service of the team, a readiness to take on individual responsibility. It might sound stupid, but when these things go like clockwork, the storm is back. So you're hearing that. We're gonna plow through even if it happens. You're happy to run. You don't, says Sven Bender, you don't even feel it anymore. We were so united in our purpose, so clear, eager to help each other. We were blood brothers. That goes back to us, just that 5 miles up, 5 miles down, the band of brothers, the metaphors to, the bonds made in war. Obviously, it's not the same, but struggle, will sharpen bonds and make them stronger, especially when you know you're doing it together, not just complaining through it like a belief. We stopped asking questions, adds Hummels. We knew exactly what the coach wanted us to do, and it was actually fun to play that way, almost addictive. His classic phrase was, "Run like there's no tomorrow." It came easily to us. Now, this just brought up something that I just listened to on Joe Rogan's podcast. He had a guy who was going through, this is completely out of left field. He was bringing up the history of LSD and methamphetamines in the Nazi regime. Now, when they were planning their Blitzkrieg assault, they were going like, man, these guys got to be up for days driving the tanks and whatnot. And they had a solution because there was like meth was like a normalcy. You could just buy meth at like the drugstore, and just like instead of coffee, like I'm gonna go work at the plant and I'm just gonna take some meth. Just very normal. It gives you that boost. But they were gonna give extra meth, and that's what really fueled the Blitzkrieg. But Hitler at one point didn't think it was necessary because he's like, their pride will be what fuels them, but you can't get everybody in a whole army under this. But when I was reading that, again, it reminded me, like, well, you can get a smaller group of people, and that's why you have individual moments in platoons that have special moments of camaraderie. Yeah. But I don't want to... Bringing that up is kind of... I understand how it sounds. But I was like, when he said that, the other general, like, we can't get everybody. That's not enough. Like, we do need to give them the drugs. Like, so we're going to do it. We're going to issue it, and for that, and it worked. But
yeah, for that operation, yeah, I mean, drug use was.
But you can capture people, and that will bring about a euphoricness.
Yeah, which is
kind of like they were on an organic meth. Of just that togetherness, because you can go further. You have the passion to fight. That does exist. You don't need the drugs to create that environment, which is pretty wild.
Yeah.
Klopp had worked in preseason on toning down the wildness, kind of opposite what we were just saying, to make Dortmund's game a bit more rational, especially in possession. But full throttle was what they do best, Watzke remarked, after the win against the Billy Goats. They're not good at winding down a game. Instead of settling for a respectable 1-1 draw at the Rhein-Energiestadion, Dortmund pushed forward with abandon in the final minutes, propelled by a will to win that was much greater than their fear of losing. Now that's how I would want my team to play. Not fearing of losing, but fearing of not, like, we need to win. I want to win more than I care about losing. Because you gain no benefit as a player for fearing of losing. Leave that to the coach to be like, okay, I need to put in another central defensive midfielder.
Yeah. It's hard to, I mean, even when we were coaching, our U14, 15 boys, just helping them understand, like, look, guys, don't worry about the winning or the losing during the game. Focus on what you got to do together on the pitch in real time. And it was hard to even, like, try and bring up during halftime talks or even, like, pre-game, post-game talks, just the result of the scoreline doesn't matter until, like, it's just all done.
Right.
Like, it's you see it, you see how it affects a team when the team is thinking about these things, because they just play differently, and they play probably much more poorly because they're being controlled by that fear of, like, I'm terrified of losing, like, we can't lose, like, I need to score because I need that bonus, or I need the... But instead of just trusting how you've been playing and, like, the camaraderie that you already have, it's just like, just trust in that a little bit, just play the game, especially if you guys have been struggling together and growing together. Like, that's why it was so effective. And Klopp was, it was that was his way, man. It's pretty cool. Hunger is important to have when you play this game, and like hunger for the squad to do well.
And your players will listen to what you have to say if you're being compared to this. They were all still kids, and they followed him like Jesus' disciples. They had a very strong bond. The extraordinary togetherness of the players wasn't limited to football matters. We used to get together, 10 of us, and play online for hours on end, says Subotic. We knew that wouldn't last forever. You get older, you have other interests. But at the time, it was a hugely important tool for us that brought us together. Now, obviously, having that devotion to somebody, like, that means you're hanging on their words. You're actually paying attention. You want to know what they have to say. If they give me advice, I'm going to listen to it. I'm going to try to decipher it. The lesser of that is getting online to play. It sounds lesser, but you can create bonds that way. And I have very specific memories of online playing on the Xbox 360, whether it be some Call of Duty days or some FIFA days or some Command and Conquer days, whatever the game. Like, that was, we can argue the negativity of how much I played, but these guys are getting it done. So clearly it's being done in a balanced way and it's not affecting their play. So it is a bonding thing. Mm-hmm. And I have a lot of joyous memories of just being in a virtual world with friends, whether, a lot of Nazi zombies and things like that. And I cherish those memories. They were very positive memories that I know I have bonds with, even some people that that were at school, but I didn't know them too well. But, if it was behind closed doors, I would be like, you remember that? And that person would be like, I do remember that.
Yeah.
And I even, every now and again, that was always something when I lived with Jared. Like, it was somebody I played a lot of those things with, and we would talk about, like, how it's weird that we have, like, core memories of playing games, or even, like, connections you made with somebody who lives across the state. Like, those can be real if you allow them to be.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes right into the next thing with Dickel, the announcer, just commenting on. There's an old saying in football. You have to be 11 friends. It's not totally wrong. If there are 8 friends in the team, that's already quite good.
Right.
And yeah, like, it's pretty realistic for, like, the entire roster to be friends, but like, it is very realistic for a bunch of them to be.
I know that dynamic was discussed when Barcelona and Real Madrid were, like, at the highest of highs. Obviously, they have been just recently, but talking about Messi, Suarez, Neymar, best of buds when it was happening, and one of the most dynamic front three ever to play.
Yeah.
But also their counterpart was Ronaldo, Benzema, Bale. And it was always kind of talked about they had to have gotten along because they were prolific. Right. 3 Champions League straight wins, But it was talked about, it wasn't as a prolific relationship in terms of, like, best of buddies, and they're hanging out with each other's families and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So you can have success and not be the best of friends. But does it help? I think it helps.
Yeah, I mean, it's better than not.
Mm-hmm.
If you're, I don't know, it's tough when you're not a little bit familiar with somebody that you're going to be relying on.
Sure.
On the pitch, which, I don't know, you and I had kind of seen, like, some clicks within some of the teams that we've coached, and that, I feel like, always had some sort of effect on it. Even when those individual players didn't really connect with some of their team, they still did well, and then when they did well, they got recognized. And just like, it is important to make a bit of an effort if you want things to go well with the team.
Absolutely.
And if you don't care about the team, well, maybe you shouldn't be playing.
Right. So, if I had known these things we were about to go into, I probably would have had better patience. I was an ignorant, as I've already said, Liverpool fan. But clearly, if you give Klopp a couple years, just wait. In the first year, it was rather normal football with a pinch of Klopp tactics, says Subotic. In the second year, it got spicier. In the third year, boom, we reached a whole new level because all 25 players now truly got it. Training felt like war. And I'm going to go into a little, not as long as the first part, but this is what training looked like.
Mm-hmm.
The training week had a fixed pattern. Monday was a rest day. Tuesday, gym sessions, sprints, four-a-side games, tournament style. The winner stays. Subotic. Fun to start your week that way, but very demanding. You sprint all the time. Challenge for the ball all the time. It's a workout, but you don't realize it. Wednesday, 11-a-side. 2 halves of 10 minutes, preceded by a warm-up with passing. Thursday, shooting on goal. For everybody, including defenders. After 2 extremely tough days, you needed to have a bit of fun. We sometimes adjusted the sessions to concentrate on a particular weakness of the opponent. To cross the ball in a certain way, for example. But you could shoot on goal unobstructed. I think every pub player would have said, I'll be happy to join in that session. Fridays were devoted to dead balls, free kicks, but mostly corners. The same 2 teams were always up against each other. The ball was live. There would be counterattacks and counterattacks on a very small pitch, 30 meters long, with boards along the touchline to keep the ball in play. Subotic talking. Short and sweet, but tough as hell. 200 miles an hour for a few minutes. The score was kept throughout the season. I like that. I know it got everybody in my little friend group at Angelo's. First, we didn't keep score too much, but this is where it first happened, where we got really good at ping pong. His cousin was living with him at the time from Italy, and we just played all the time. And then when the pool table arrived, I think you might have seen it. At one time, there was a closet door down the basement, and it was like a chalkboard door. We kept score of, it was always in doubles, and we would play best of 7, like how an NBA Finals would be.
Okay.
In the playoffs, you play 7 games. Well, if you win 4, you win.
Right.
But it can go to 7.
Just like in the NHL, too.
So you have to win one of those, best of 7, to get 1 mark under the duo name. So there'd be, all of us would have played, we swap around every time. So to get 1 mark, you have to it either goes to 7 or you win it in 4. Like, you always win it in 4, but
wow.
It takes a lot to get the 1 mark, and the marks were up there for like a year. Like, it was a long time. We were playing pool like every day.
Wow. Are you just secretly good at pool then?
I mean, this has faded away. This was maybe like 3-4 years ago. Like at the height of working at the shop and whatnot, and
you probably still got it.
It was always me, CJ, Angelo, and Islam. That was like the big 4 that were involved in that. But yeah, we got good. But also like that competition though, to get the mark, you want to win the 4-game series.
Yeah,
a lot of you go down 3-0
to get better.
Yeah, you go down 3-0. But yeah, the motivation was very high. Back to the book, so it was for us. Nobody wanted to lose. No prisoners. It was always your last chance to show the coach, I'm here, I'm ready. A last short, sharp jolt. Saturday was the game. Sundays were spent regenerating and doing warm downs. On top of these physical exertions, there was a short and concise video analysis session. After a quick introduction by Klopp, Krawitz took over and showed the team clips of the next opponents, their dead ball pieces, their basic defense and attacking shapes, where they had problems or gaps. The whole routine was so brutal that there was no time to think at all. But I think that also appealed to them because this was probably back at the schedules have only gotten crazier. But when you can just focus on just the league game and a couple League Cup games here and there, I imagine that being prepared for each singular game is a lot simpler than, well, Wednesday we got Champions League, and then Saturday we got this league game, but then we also have a Tuesday league game because we got to do that, and then there's also the FA Cup, and then there's this. It's just 3 games a week sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So that doesn't even fit into what they were doing here. But I'm not trying to take away from them. But, they're still busy. That's a lot of work. And their work bore very good fruits. Dortmund were running away with the league, racking up win after win, while champions Bayern were ignominiously stuck in mid-table, slowly self-destructing under the high-handed leadership of Louis van Gaal. Bayern Leverkusen were doing much better, but they were Leverkusen, weren't they? A club with a well-deserved reputation for being bottlers. Now, I put a little side note. They're not that anymore,
No.
but Arsenal right now is trying to get out of that, but now their past 2 seasons would be more attributed to Leverkusen having great seasons, but coming up just a little short. You're like, oh, they're in first now. City's going to win, though. City's going to win.
Right.
And that's happened to them twice now. Spurs, they have a very...
They're always there.
What's the Arsenal saying?
Oh. What do you think of Tottenham? Shit. What do you think of shit? Tottenham.
There you go. So you get that kind of stigma on you, man. Like, you got to work your ass off to get that off of you. Leverkusen has done that. Arsenal is just about there, man. Like, I mean, I fear playing Arsenal now, but are they going to win the silverware? They need to win the title here. But it's very difficult.
It is,
especially when you got
more difficult.
Just every time City wins it, it's just, that's why it was so hard to dethrone United at the time. Just a squad that is just ingrained with how to do it. Mm-hmm. You can kind of attribute that to how the Patriots were. When it comes down to crunch time, we've been there, done that. Literally, our blood pressure doesn't go up at the slightest because it's easy to do it. Now it's kind of the Chiefs. There was all these better teams seeming playing in the regular season, but once the Chiefs got in the playoffs, there was something about watching them. I felt the same as I did watching the Patriots. These crunch time moments, they don't blink. And these other teams that haven't gotten over the hump, they blink. And that when they blink, they're so cutthroat and they murder you. The second you blink, you're dead. Mm-hmm. Because they've been there, done that. They know when you blink, we got to kill you. But that's not, sometimes they do blink. But it's that inexperience of the other team, they don't take advantage. When they blink, it's like, oh, well, there's the next one. When you blink, they kill you. Every time. And that's what City does. And until that runs out, like, somebody has to then just become Neo, and you got to kill the veteran. Eventually it happens. Eventually you get old, and your reaction time is that 1 second, and that young samurai comes and he wins the duel. Yeah. But when is it going to happen? When is Arteta going to... He has to kill Pep. He has to kill him. He has to be one inch closer to the jugular than Pep will be.
Maybe. Or he just has to wait till Pep leaves.
It might happen. But, he's doing his darnest.
He's trying. Yeah. He's still trying, but, like, when Pep leaves, it'll be more, like... Right.
He's doing his darnest to do it now, which would be a feat that only Klopp has done in the Premier League. And by a thin margin at that. So, yeah, you got the Leverkusen bottlers. They're getting out of the way. 3 months into the campaign, it dawned on Klopp that his men that they could go all the way. To keep the pressure off of them, any mention of winning the league was strictly banned from the very top down. Yeah. I really like that, especially with how young the squad was.
Yeah.
That we are not going to talk about this. A few weeks later, indeed, Klopp found himself answering uncomfortable questions in a TV interview. Why did the team play so poorly against Hanover? WDR's Ard Ziegler inquired, "We have problems. So many problems." Klopp said, rubbing his eyes underneath his glasses, "The boys don't adhere to instructions. I can't get through to them. I'm not sure I'm the right coach anymore. We have to analyze the situation critically during the week. Maybe the players want to get rid of me. I'm a bit clueless at the moment, to be honest. The BVB coach also lamented that there was no alternatives to the 29-year-old Roman Weidenfeller in goal. Today he was okay, but in the morning after getting up, he looks horrible. We have no choice other than to drink enough until he looks better in our eyes. It was all a very good joke, of course, a feature for Ziegler's satirical football show. Dortmund had in fact won 4-0 at Hanover. And yet, the skit served a serious purpose too. Like many of Klopp's funny lines, his comedic qualities helped to release tension inside the dressing room, and also guaranteed that his players listened attentively. His punchlines were perfect, says Watzke. Jürgen is never monotonous or predictable. That keeps everybody's concentration. So by January, BVB had opened up a 12-point gap. Mario Götze performed so well in the 3-1 win at Leverkusen that Klopp was forced to substitute him to save him from even more media hype and potential retribution from humiliated opponents.
Which is something I never think about when I see subs.
Right, you don't know what's going on. This made me just think just now, not when I read it the first time, back to when Mainz played Union Berlin, and we read about Union Berlin's they had a media storm painting Klopp as the bad guy. It was I forget. It was a win to one of the wins. It was one of the wins where they had to get promoted, but they. Oh,
you mean in the book?
Yeah, in the last chapter, they didn't get they lost. They had lost their must-win game, and Berlin went all out in the media and then in the political game, and so now Klopp he learns, man. He's like, okay, I got to manage the media. I got to manage the expectations here. So he's doing a great job of that. He's learning, man, and I have another note of that later on about how this guy learns. But if I cross over anything that you have, man, just feel free to.
Well, yeah, I mean, there was a small note about at the top of the page on 196. Just Klopp kept insisting, I have 0% interest in the table. Anyone talking about winning in the league now has no idea about football, said Zorc. And it's just that's just such a true statement, because you can't predict stuff based off of the first week or even right before the Christmas break. You can't really just know what is going to happen. And even just thinking about winning the table, if your team is even talking about that, then you have no idea how unpredictable football can be. Which is why preparation is just so important, why Klopp understands that so well. Unless they are doing what they need to do, the chapter's been telling us that they've been doing, that's why they went all the way. They were preparing in such intense measures that they were able to deal with the pressure, just in the beginning of the chapter. They didn't really understand how much pressure they were dealing with until it kind of ended. But I just like that bit a lot, because some sports can be pretty predictable, but others are not so much. You could probably say City's gonna win this year, but that's based off of what they have been showing the past few years, and that can be a very huge general prediction. Just okay, well, you don't know what they're gonna be struggling with, or what games they might lose, or you don't know.
You say that things until Haaland's out for the year,
right? Knock
on wood. Not wishing that against City players, but everything looks fine and dandy until things go wrong, and they can go wrong which is why you can't
even just be oh yeah, we'll win the league this year.
It's not as simple.
No, you can't do that. That's just bad juju, man. It's no way.
So Dortmund go on, and they are obliterating people. They are running them into the ground. Just full domination and the belief in the players. Gegenpressing is the world's best playmaker, Klopp says about his team's propensity to win the ball when opponents were in total disarray. They're making people, they're dictating how the passing is going in the backfield of the opponent, making it easier for the defenders to defend instead of somebody actually seeing the run and making a good pass over the top. It's just all forced. And speaking of Nuri Sahin again, he was apparently on fire in this campaign. In Sahin, they had the perfect man for those killer balls. Sometimes it felt as if he was 90% of the team, says Subotic. It was like, get the ball to Nuri. He'll do something. If you saw him without a shirt, you thought, what, this tiny guy? But you couldn't get the ball off him. He was the brain and the leader. And this is to say, Liverpool signed this guy after he left Real Madrid, and it was not a good
signing.
It was not a good signing. It didn't work out. I mean, it just should have waited for when Klopp showed up, and then Klopp could have played with, could have got him.
Welcome back, buddy.
Right, he should have just waited to move with Klopp, man. But it seemed like it was just business when he left initially. But I didn't know he was killing it that much. So you're like, this guy, he's too small. But you couldn't get the ball off him. He was the brain and the leader. And now he is the leader of the team today. It was Sahin who effectively swung the game at Bayern on match day 24 with a wonderfully executed free kick. Dortmund's second on the night. Borussia hadn't won in Bavaria capital for 19 years. Most of my boys were still being breastfed then, Klopp joked. Bayern were driftwood in a sea of yellow and black. Wherever star winger Arjen Robben went, 2 Borussia Dortmund players were already there stepping on his toes. Just they're dominating the old guard. Which, as you said, like, you don't know what's going to happen. I'm sure everybody was Bayern's going to win. Bayern's going to win. City's going to win until a team's going, and maybe they're going to go into the Etihad this year, whoever, and they're going to, we figured it out. We know how to beat them. I don't know, but it can happen, and all of a sudden you're like, what's going on? Following a small wobble with a defeat to Hoffenheim and a draw against Mainz, Bayern employed mind games one more time. So they're getting hit with the propaganda. If I was wearing black and yellow pants, I wouldn't sleep soundly, Hoeneß said ahead of Dortmund's home game against Hanover. But Germany's most decorated club found that they weren't even best in class in talking a good game anymore. So the propaganda doesn't work now. I wonder what Hoeneß's pants looked like before he went to bed, Klopp responded. Borussia won the game 4-1, 7 points ahead of Leverkusen with 5 games to go. They were almost champions. Everything's going right, man. People can't get in your heads. You're dominating the old empire. You are becoming the new empire. The team were so infused with the need to exert maximum effort each time that they had hated themselves for merely capitulating 2-0 at Werder Bremen a week after the title celebrations. So this skips right to it. They've done it. What we read about in the beginning, they've done it. But now they've only won 2-0 at Werder Bremen. Possibly still suffering from the after effects of the party, Dortmund were a shadow of themselves. We all sat in the bus in silence, ashamed, says Bender. But 30 minutes in, we looked at each other and thought, have we lost our minds? Are we totally insane? We were German champions. Who cares about losing that game? Let's sing. They sang all the way back to Dortmund. So they are champions, and they have been so coached effectively that even just not showing, not winning the right way, or maybe losing a game, it's just they're like, man, we lost, dude. This is crazy. Like, we should win this game. Like, I'm sure they weren't practicing as hard if they were partying, which you're allowed to party when you've won before the game. In my book, you've already won. But that just shows the mentality, like, man, we should win these games. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I mean, it just like the way the rest of the world sees this, like, or even the Bundesliga, is just they're able to spin it. They spin in a positive way, and the players, even after losing that game, are just like, we can't be hung up on it. It's just like, it's in the paragraph on 200, right after you were talking there, the disruptive innovation underpinning their success was especially relevant to the Bundesliga, a league that had been steadily losing ground internationally due to financial restraints and a culture of passive coaching. Klopp's Dortmund showed a way to increase productivity with purely natural, renewable resources, a blue-collar work ethic, humility, and cleverness. And that was a very simple way of putting it, honestly. It was just... it's just giving the audience, or like this author, he's giving his readers a glimpse of how like coaching in the Bundesliga and its players and how the football there was at that time and how powerful Dortmund actually were, just to kind of have that season that we just read about. And I mean, I'm I'm disappointed that I missed out on watching it, because I mean, I was at the time I was a Bayern fan.
The revolution was happening.
So, and this story, well, Klopp's story with Dortmund was kind of like the win me over, like just like I like more about this club than maybe I did about Bayern. And don't get me wrong, like Bayern, there's a lot of favorites I like about Bayern, especially with the players that they had. Frank Ribery, Arjen Robben, Philipp Lahm, Bastian Schweinsteiger, and I mean, a lot of those guys were
surplus to requirements. Toni Kroos,
right? Just that whole squad was just very inspiring to watch them play too. But just this story was just like, man, I can't believe I missed it. So I'm just like, I wanted to be a fan of that. And I mean, I am now. So it's just, I am also just more impressed with Sahin's success in this club without really knowing who he was. And now that he's a coach at Dortmund, it's just kind of like that 360 circle just keeps coming back around with this book, and it's just
I'm about to bring
so weird.
The 360 circle back around again.
We're going around again.
Because you can now, Sahin's coaching, so if he has success, then you can trace it back to, well, he was a disciple of the Klopp way and how to coach and how to be more than a coach at a club, and then you could trace that back to Wolfgang Frank. Right? The whole 360, the great grandfather of Nuri Sahin. Because everybody's becoming a fan of Dortmund. Outside Germany, experts took note. 3 months before the title win, the technical staff of Italy's national team, coached by Cesare Prandelli, came to look at Borussia's training. The team's movement reminded them of Sachi's Milan. They told a beaming Klopp afterwards. And that's why I bring up Wolfgang Frank again, because this goes all the way back to page 47 to 48. Back to chapter 6 of Wolfgang Frank, the Master. As a player, Wolfgang had been fascinated by the playing style of Arrigo Sacchi's AC Milan, a team that dominated European football in the late 1980s and early 90s, thanks to their revolutionary collective tactics, a synchronicity of movement that suffocated opponents by depriving them of space and time. And now that's the Italian coach is coming because he reminds them of that thing. Klopp has taken the lessons and he has done that which Wolfgang Frank dreamed of, I would say.
Yeah.
And it only gets better. He only wins more in the future. But I like that. It was a full 360 when I read that. That's why I had to put that note down.
No, it was, I mean, even just reading like, it reminds him of Sachi's AC Milan. Right. I'm just like, hold on a second. I've already read that name in this book. Right.
And that's who Wolfgang Frank was obsessed with. Like, this is the way. This has to be the way. So it wasn't Like, he invented it, but he saw that this isn't being utilized enough, and we can do it here in Germany because it's not being done.
Yeah.
Success brought its own trappings. Half the team received lucrative offers to switch clubs. Yep, this is how it goes. But of the regulars, only Sahin moved on. Jose Mourinho's Real Madrid. That's just saying that puts me back in time because he was there.
Yeah.
Exercised a $12 million release clause. That's chump change these days. To take the midfielder to the Bernabeu. Sahin's successor was 20-year-old Ilkay Gundogan.
Wow.
Gundogan. I never know if I'm saying it right. From FC Nuremberg. So it's just like name dropping, but these are just kids. They're kids.
Yeah, and he's coming out of like a less renowned club, FC Nuremberg, but they're there. They're playing football, man.
But it's crazy the weight of the name, and you're like, we just read like, man, Sahin, he was like 90% of the team.
And then he's gone.
Oh, well, we saw this guy, Ilkay Gundogan. Let's bring him in. Maybe he'll be good.
Well, that's the thing with selling players, though. Like, especially if you are selling one that you somewhat rely on, it's just like you have to have somebody to replace him, and you can't just sell him on a whim. You can't sell him without having somebody in mind already.
They bought him to replace him, but it didn't go like, oh, he's going to be Nuri Sahin now.
Right.
Eventually, yes, but not right away. He asked me, what would your targets be if you came to us? This is Klopp asking. This is their conversation between the two. I said, to play as often and well as possible. Seems like a pretty good answer. You see, that's already the first mistake, he replied. It's not about playing often, but making the most of your time on the pitch. I can't promise that you'll play often. That's not possible. But I can promise you that you'll learn an incredible amount, and that we will be extremely successful if you all bring your potential to bear. I remember that clearly. That was the first time in football that somebody didn't promise me the stars, but was open and honest with me. I found that fascinating. And it's Klopp, man. He's just hook, line, and sinkering people and just being who he is. So,
just giving you the truth, man. That's all.
But if you resonate with it, that'll keep you to stay. That'll make you stay. And the fact that that's why you stayed is why it'll work. Instead of promising the stars and then that doesn't happen, and then you go, well, these people lied to me, and now I'm going to force my way out and just call it, there's already turmoil.
Yeah, I've got this whole next page to it too, like pretty much underlined.
Okay, go for it, brother.
Just going to start off with I'm going to start off with 201. Gundogan found the step up from Nuremberg very difficult, starting with the preseason fitness regime. Players had to go on the notorious Chucky runs, set up by assistant coach Zelko Buvac. 11 runs back and forth with and without the ball on a parkour that stretched the entire length of the pitch. After the 11th run, players had to hit the crossbar from the halfway line. Those who missed had to go on a 12th run. The hardest thing I ever done. It was sick, Gundogan sighs, reliving the horror in his mind. But it was important. Surviving the session gave us plenty to talk about. It brought the team closer. You felt camaraderie with your fellow sufferers. Matt Hummels always complained, but he ran too.
That's all I had underlined on that page. He complained, but he ran. but he ran too. Yeah. Sometimes you just got to cope in a different way.
It's one thing to complain about it, but it's if you have players that complain about it, but then do it.
Yeah,
I mean, I can live with that. It's just, Gundogan saw first, just the sessions were already boot camp, just preparation.
What did I get myself into?
Yeah, but as the page continues, Gundogan's problems extended into the first half of the season. He was introverted and immature, he says, spending a little too much time with family and friends, playing with the handbrake on, worried about making mistakes. Klopp saw that, he says, and he scared me a little bit, to be honest. I sometimes didn't immediately understand what it was he wanted me to do. It took time until the penny dropped for me. Yeah, it's a weird thing when the coach, as a player, when the coach kind of scares you a bit, and it's just like you don't really know what you should do for him not to be like upset or frustrated with you anymore, just because like you're not ingrained yet. So the coach is almost like helping that being ingrained. Like he's frustrated because he wants the player to be ingrained a little bit quicker, just because he's also coming into the team too. So I think Klopp had already thought about that. To continue, for the legs and for the head, Dortmund's specific way of playing was tough to adjust to, let alone the higher quality of his teammates. Gundogan says, we practiced a lot of gegenpressing. Klopp said the first one, 2 seconds after losing the ball, were decisive. We shouldn't be upset about losing the ball, but actually be happy about being able to win it back. The idea was
we should be happy.
The idea was to attack the ball straight away, to surprise the opponent. They felt secure. They weren't ready for that. And that's such a funny play on words when you're just like, no, don't be upset you lost the ball. You should be happy about it. Just like, man, well, of course, like, you know, if gegenpressing is like a very new thing, of course your team and new players like Gundogan are gonna be like, what do you mean?
If it's your bread and butter for success, then you can get really happy about it. But as we repeating myself on like just the teams that we've been playing on, we're not in everybody bought in on a pressing style of play. So when we lost the ball, it was bad, and it was hard to be happy about it.
Yeah,
there's not
we have to work more.
There's not a concentrated 100% effort to move in a shape to get the ball back.
Yeah,
which makes it easier to be happy about.
Yes, which I had said previously in one of our other episodes. Just like if I'm pressing alone, it's literally the last thing I want to do, man. If I press and I know I have my team, I'll press all day.
Yeah, man.
Absolutely. I'll do it. You know, obviously we got to pick out certain areas, but yeah. The next paragraph kind of goes into their Champions League experience, just with like how their gegenpressing tactics didn't really lock into place quite like right away. Watzke, the CEO of Dortmund, said they lacked experience, and eventually they had to change. Just for the Champions League, change the way that they played. It goes to say, we pressed really high up the pitch. That didn't work. Every game was the same. We were the better team. We created good chances. We didn't score. We lost 2-0 or 3-0. The year after that, we changed our style of playing. We were up against Real Madrid and Manchester City in the group stage then.
That's a lesser Manchester City at the time, though.
Right. Still, like, had some decent enough players.
The Real Madrid was the big one.
Yeah. It was a learning process for the team, Gundogan says. We were all quite young and naive. These European teams were a little too street smart for us. And then it goes later into the paragraph about how Gundogan is just trying to wrap his head around like what's he doing here, and how he eventually deciphered the code for the team and how they worked as a team. Sven Bender in the game against Hanover in February 2012 had to be subbed off, and Gundogan was subbed on.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to wait for your turn.
Yeah, and it says right on the page that it just clicked. And just everything that they had been doing in training made sense as soon as he got on the pitch and just started playing, which was just like what it's supposed to really do.
Klopp didn't tell him why he wasn't playing. He had to figure it out for himself. And I like that it said right after that they were too street smart, the European giants. Mm-hmm. But we heeded the lessons just as I did for my game. And the group they crashed out of was Arsenal, Marseille, and Olympiacos at the time. Mm-hmm. And I was just going to... Yeah, just it was too much for them. Their first time as this core of players, this coach, that's first Champions League experience.
Yeah, that's
for maybe everybody, but two veterans maybe. I don't know if they had it from when they won. They won the league before. It was like the goalie and Kell. I think they said they had.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So they might have had two guys. You know, it's not a lot. But I just had a note on the side here because you got to watch out if Klopp loses big. So he gets completely obliterated out of this group stage, and you're just like, you have a little bit of doubts. But you're like, you don't realize what you've just done. He will now acclimate. He now knows. He's seen. He tasted it, and I wrote that Klopp is like a Saiyan. If you watch Dragon Ball, the Saiyans are a warrior alien race that every time they fight, they get stronger, and when they get close to death, they get like a huge like power level increase. Is how the show explains it. So when Klopp gets his ass handed to him, he becomes much better. It seems to happen time and time again. Like, well, man, we lost getting promoted 2 years in a row. I figured it out now. Oh, we got completely obliterated out of this group stage. Okay, now I know how to. Now we know how to operate. You just got to put me in the rapids or put him in the fire, and he comes out better for it.
Yeah. That I can agree with that.
Oh, the Premier League? Man, this is okay. I got to figure this out. And then he figures that out. Okay. Oh, Champions League final? That didn't quite work out. All right. I figured it out. Gets it done. He gets better. I have a lot in these next 204 and 205 here.
Oh, okay.
Because this is more about Gundogan here at first. Just how Klopp coaches, man. One awkward incident in training sealed our bond. Gundogan had been due to play in the first team against the reserves in an important Wednesday session. Obviously, it's all clicking for him now. When the weekend's match was simulated, getting up in the morning, he felt a tightness in his hamstring. Players with injury concerns are supposed to come in 90 minutes to 2 hours early, to get assessed by the physio and enable the coaching staff to find a replacement from the amateur team or the U19s if need be. Gundogan thought he could train, but decided to seek out the physio 30 minutes before the session started. He looked at it and said, "I have to tell the coach there's a danger you might get injured." I said, "Okay, but please tell him that I can play." A few minutes later, the door opened and Jürgen walks in. This giant of a man, looking at me angrily. "What the hell are you playing at?" He shouted. "It's okay, coach, I can play. I just wanted to make sure." He reminded me about coming in an hour and a half early. He was quite upset with me. "Do whatever you want," he said and left. I thought, shit, what do I do now? Gundogan was the first man on the pitch. Klopp yelled him over. He walked a few steps with me away from the boys and goes, "My friend, you can understand me, right?" "Yes, I do. I just wanted to..." "No, you don't understand. The next time you have problems, even if it's just a little twinge or your bum is itchy or whatever, you call the doctor or the physio. You can even call me first thing in the morning and break my balls. Just tell us. Okay, coach. You'll join in the warm-ups, but then you go off before the game starts. But I want to train. Be quiet, you'll go off. Then he laughed and hugged me. I asked once more if I shouldn't stay for training, but he sent me back in after another hug. He became more than a coach for me after that. We had a special connection, and a very successful one. That just encapsulated like the perfect sternness, seriousness. You have to do these things. They're important. And then meeting him where he's at. Just like, hey man, like you just need to understand this. And then embracing him after he was the embrace after making somebody feel, oh shit, what do I do now? You can put that moment on somebody you're coaching, and then if you never come back to it, then now there's a disconnect. I've upset him. I'm doing it wrong. But then he took the time to show love, which is to me an important thing to do.
Yeah. It's definitely like, yeah, it's very unique to Klopp. I mean, you know, without really knowing how other coaches coach, he definitely had understood. Well, it was just his genuine way of just connecting with his players too. Just right. Like, and it never felt, at least with these players, like it wasn't genuine. It was always just like, oh, this is just how he is. Okay, cool.
It's a good way to command respect. It's always a difficult thing to teach in church, what they call the fear of God. That sounds negative. But if it's a healthy relationship, you're supposed to fear the one who has the real power. And fear is not a bad thing when it's dictator's fear. That's different. This is a fear that the power is real. And he commands that in that example. I'm the coach. You have to do these things. There are reasons why these rules exist. They're important.
Right.
So he's commanding that power, and it's real. And the other people are also falling in line because they know it's real. But it becomes that beautiful relationship with how I said before. Then when you meet where you're at with love. So now the love and fear are actually working together. Because now I don't fear to approach the power. The power is here for my betterment, for my good. Right. It doesn't want to harm me. But this power it is real, and it can harm me if I come against it. You could easily negate that love that he showed if he didn't receive the love. That's what sealed the bond, he says. But if he doesn't receive that love and rebels against it, well, now you're a problem in the squad. Now you're probably not going to last too long. Now there's going to be a divide. Now it's not going to be good, and the power will come against you, and you will probably be cast out because now the squad's not together. You're not doing the running that's required. And easily that would have happened if Klopp didn't have the love to give out, and if it was all just fear and dictatorship. I mean, you can find people that are robotic and bend the knee to the king, but I don't know if they're going to work as hard and work as beautifully as this. Otherwise, It probably would have happened by now. I think this is what's unique about how Klopp does it, and why you see like almost a parental connection, uncle, whatever you want to call it, with his players. Like they just,
for sure,
they love him. They literally love him. It's love, and I think there's a lot of love in the sport. But back to the campaign. Dortmund's European woes had no negative impact on their form in the league. On the contrary, from October 2011 onwards, they went on a domestic rampage of 28 games without defeat. Once more, a win over Bayern, Dortmund's fourth successive defeat of the Bavarians, decided the title race. The home side's perfect midfield positioning created a kill zone near the halfway line, where most Bayern attacking moves went to die in the first half. I love just how it's just making like a kill box and just machine gunning them down, but it's just they're not going to be able to do anything. Dortmund moved 6 points clear of the top with 4 games to go. So here we go. It's a second successive title about to happen.
And I still missed it.
What's that?
And I still missed it.
Oh, you missed watching it, right? I'm at the bottom of 206, so if you had anything to add.
No, I do not actually.
Borussia's appetite was not yet satisfied. 4 weeks after winning the league, so they've done it. They had the chance to achieve the club's first ever double. Bayern stood in their way, though, in the final in Berlin. It would, as Watts puts it, turn into a game of fundamental importance for both clubs. 23 years had passed since Dortmund's last win in the Cup. Less than 3 minutes into the match, Dortmund were 1-0 up through Shinji Kagawa. Robin and Hummels both converted penalties. Then Lewandowski scored Dortmund's third at the stroke of halftime. The 3-1 lead enabled the Black and Yellows to play on the counter-attack. Jürgen loves a good counter. After the break, setting up traps that the Bavarians stumbled into like a pack of doddering bears. Dortmund played more defensively, more sneakily. This is the tactics evolving. More calculated. Full of admiration, they aren't just German champions, but also cup winners and forcing of opposition errors. You're making your opponent blink so many times, and they became very hungry at going for the kill. It's a perfect recipe for victory. Lewandowski ended up with a hat-trick, and it was a 5-2 win. This was not coincidence. Bayern CEO Karl-Heinz Rummenigge conceded in front of the sponsors and VIP guests at the midnight banquet. This was an embarrassment. Every goal was like a slap in the face for us. On the pitch, Watkins Zorc had quietly shed tears of joy on the most extraordinary moment in Dortmund's history. So it's always a more pleasure when they embarrass Bayern.
Yeah, that was the goal when they played them.
So Dortmund have now replaced Bayern at the top of the German football food chain. A complete swaying of power. Alex Ferguson. So United is at the height of its magisterial reign of England. He was an observer who had enjoyed the show in Berlin. The Manchester United coach had traveled to Germany to cast an eye over Kagawa and Lewandowski. He sat 4 places to the left of me, Watts says. I told him he could have one. Kagawa. But not the other. He looked at me a little dumbfounded. The Japanese midfielder would leave for the Premier League at the end of the season. That guy, he knew what he was talking about. You can have that one. And that's no shade to Kagawa. We all know what Lewandowski became and was.
Right.
But this, as Star Wars titles go, the Bavarian Empire was poised to strike back.
Yep.
So in Klopp's success, and I said he gets better after losses, you're literally just beating a very angry bear into the ground and waking the fire. Like, okay, we will not stand for this.
Yeah, Bayern has repeated this process. Kind of how Jürgen Klopp learns in his big defeats. Mm-hmm. Bayern also kind of do that. And even when Bayern lost to Chelsea in the Champions League, they came back the next year and won it.
Yeah. It makes it a little easier when you have the money.
It does.
Bayern broke their own transfer record to buy holding midfielder Javi Martinez from Athletic Bilbao, 40 million at the time, as well as Mario Mandzukic, 11 million from Wolfsburg. Winger Shaqiri, who we just saw in the Euros. The Shaq, the Cube, the legend. And defender Dante, of Borussia Mönchengladbach, Shaqiri from FC Basel. Dante did okay at Bayern, I would say.
He did?
But as I continue to bring up, I think this dude is 40 now.
Dante?
Yes. That one I'm going to be pretty sure. And he has just cemented his career at Nice in France.
Oh.
He's played there, yes. He is 40 years old. He is the captain. And he has now had...
He's the captain, too.
Yeah, dude, he's been there since 2016. Bayern was his most capped team at the time at 133 games. He played there for 3 years, but once he got to Nice, 283 games. Like, it's his home now. And he's an old man, and he's holding it down. I just thought that was pretty cool. That he... They had a pretty stout defense the past couple of campaigns.
Who, Nice? Yeah. I'm not surprised. Dante was a pretty good player amongst Bayern. He was never like I don't know. He fit what was going on, so like he was never like this superstar, but like he was the guy that you wanted back there. Yeah,
they placed fifth last year. And they had the least conceded goals of the whole league.
That's pretty good considering France's league is a lot of attacking football. So
PSG's 33 conceded, which was the second best.
Wow!
So they literally were beating PSG in goals conceded. So the offense need to work because they only scored 11 more goals that they conceded. But hey, your job is the center back. You're happy. We got the number one defense, so
that is good. And the whole league, man.
Just wanted to give Dante some love there. The increase to individual quality, especially at the back, had a very welcome tactical knock-on effect. Bayern's former sporting director, Matthias Sammer, explains, more stability in defense made it possible for midfield and attack to press higher. Bayern's game became more flexible, more dynamic. Klopp wasn't the only one who found the Bavarian new direction eerily familiar. They had done to us what the Chinese do to industry, he complained. They see what others are doing, copy it, and then go down the same route with more money than other players. Bayern have taken on elements of Dortmund's game and become like more like Dortmund than Dortmund themselves, Raphael Ragnick observed. But...
Which is interesting to say.
Can you blame them? No. Can you complain? Yes. I think both are in their rights. That Bayern were in their rights to do that, and it's also in your rights to kind of be upset about it.
Maybe not about some other things.
Right. Heinek's men won the Bundesliga with a new points record, 91, notching up 10 more than Dortmund in the previous season, before adding the DFB Pokal to their trophy cabinet. After 2 seasons of dragging Bayern down to our level, Klopp's Borussia's excellence had inadvertently raised the Reds' game. Mm-hmm. And I put a note of Liverpool and Man City. Just point difference. I don't think those seasons go to those levels if one existed without the other.
Yeah.
Would Pep have still won if Klopp wasn't there and Liverpool weren't dominating? I would say so. But do they get to 92 points against Liverpool's 91? I don't think so. I think that pushed them to have to be that excellent for that long. You kind of maybe put your foot off the gas after, nobody's within you in 10 points. It's just kind of natural. I'm not saying that
there needs to be a little friction for those things to happen.
Right.
Know?
That's, I think, iron sharpening iron, and it gave me some of the best years of watching Liverpool that I've ever experienced, and maybe the best that Liverpool ever was. I know they have a big history, but I mean, just the way that football has evolved, I think that Liverpool team destroys all the other ones. Maybe Benitez's Liverpool can pull a miracle off if it's just a one game take all, because they did it at AC Milan. But it's all hypothetical stuff. It's not.
It's fun to think about.
Yeah, it's fun to think about. More and more teams started to include pressing and gegenpressing in their tactical repertoire. Fighting fire with fire. Suddenly everybody did it. That's when we realized how brutally difficult it is to play against a team like that, Subotic says. Now they're feeling that ferocity and fire that now everybody has to play with. Oh, if we just all believe in it and do it together and can have success, we should all try to do that. Teams now, this happened to Liverpool after they started having a little bit of success. Teams happily conceded the ball and space, forcing BVB to play slower possession game. Klopp's racing car of a side now frequently got stuck in traffic. But this was Klopp's first time having to do that. So once that happened, he adapted to it as well. He just had to find the players that could do both, which is hard to find. But if that hadn't happened to him here, it would have been the first time he had to solve the problem when he was at Liverpool. But it's crazy that, how quickly that fire just went to everybody.
Yeah.
And it kind of changed football, man, for the better, though. You're giving all the small minnow teams like, oh, we just have to do that? We didn't take it seriously when it was at Mainz, but now they won the Bundesliga, so
right.
It's hard to ignore. Dortmund picked up 15 points fewer than in the previous season, but second place was not seen as a failure. They needed to grow as a club. Champions League qualification was more important than defending their trophies. There's the bigger picture. There's still the love for the team. We're not going to burn it down because we didn't win 3 in a row.
Mm-hmm.
I like the culture here. But yeah, they weren't able to do it for a third time. But other things were happening. And as it stated before, they made it through Man City in the group. Even though they just drew Man City when they had to play them. Where was it? This is back in the Joe Hart days. Joe Hart admitted... They were different class tonight, starting with their fans, City keeper Joe Hart admitted, but the manner of the 1-1 draw left Klopp satisfied, verging on proud. There was their result that didn't look good, but they completely dominated a team whose wages almost tripled theirs. And then it was, to be honest, Man City were shit that year. Not very strong, Walk shrugs. Their team was slow, overweight, I don't know. But Dortmund also took 4 points from 2 games versus Real Madrid and qualified for the last 16 as group leaders.
Yeah.
They truly had arrived. We're a little surprised that everybody else is surprised about that, Zorg said a little indignantly. So, Europe is going well. We didn't win the league, but it's okay.
They're showing their presence
in
fashion.
Klopp learns, does he not? He crashed out of the group, and now he's
leading.
He's onward to the next round. He now knows how to do it, and now they're up against Malaga in the quarterfinals. It was a very different story, though. Borussia were 2-1 down on aggregate at home in the second leg after 90 minutes. The away rule is gone now in today's Champions League. What happened next should go down as the miracle of Dortmund. There's a lot of miracles in Klopp's career. The black and yellow scored twice in injury time, the second from an offside position. It doesn't happen anymore. To edge the Spaniards 3-2. The Signal Iduna Park erupted, spewing out happiness like molten lava. I ran onto the pitch, hugged Marco Reus, and never wanted to let go. Gundogan remembers it was the craziest moment in my football career for sure, Subotic says. That was something straight out of a Hollywood movie. So it's going well, man. They're having miracles in the Champions League now. The miracles move on to the next hardest thing, it seems. But
this is like about the spot where I couldn't stop reading it until the end. And so strap in.
Yeah, I did not know this is how it went down in terms of the drama. The next chapter, this is the words of the book, pitted the black and yellows against Jose Mourinho's Real Madrid, who were very star-studded at the time. 2 nights before, and that, I'm not obviously Ronaldo, but it's like Ronaldo, it's Benzema, it's Higuain, it's Mesut Ozil. I think even they had Ozil and Kaká on the squad at the same time. Holding midfielder, I think this is Xabi Alonso's time at Real Madrid. This is also, I'm blanking on his name, man. What's that German defensive midfielder that played for Real Madrid? Whose brother plays for Union Berlin? Sami Khedira. I think this is also a Sami Khedira, Xabi Alonso reign. This is a Pepe and Sergio Ramos.
It was a very good squad.
This is Marcelo, left back. Who was the right? I think the right back was the position not as dominant. I think that was exchanged with a few guys because it was before the Carvajal days, I believe. I might be blanking on somebody who's...
I can't remember. Although
I digress.
It's Real Madrid.
I digress. 2 nights before the first leg, on the stroke of midnight, Gundogan was on his mobile phone, looking at the headline that didn't seem to make sense. I had this routine. I would read Bild online before going to bed. He says the next day's articles went live after midnight. And there it was, in big fat letters. Mario Götze is moving to Bayern. Oh, man. See, I didn't know it happened right before this game.
Yeah, that's why it was so dramatic and upsetting.
I texted Marco Reus. Him and Mario had the same agents and were best friends. Jeez, that makes me... See, I didn't know that. It's heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
Can this be true? Yes, I've known since yesterday. I had trouble believing it. Götze, 20, was the wonder kid of German football, the talent of the century. He had been with Borussia Dortmund since he was 8 years old, a symbol both of their renaissance under Klopp and the promise of an even greater future. Dortmund had resigned themselves to losing the odd player each year, as we've seen, but not a true Dortmunder. I believe it is raining, so it begins.
Again.
Not Mario, though. Not Mario. He's a true Dortmunder. Everybody was in shock. Some of the players couldn't sleep. Klopp told The Guardian, it was like a heart attack. I couldn't speak. I couldn't go out with my wife that night. That's crazy. I don't know if I can let myself get that obsessed, but then maybe that's why I'm not that person coaching Dortmund. You got to be that crazy. Bayern had exercised a $37 million release clause, Bild reported, to make him the first big-name signing of the Pep Guardiola reign, which was to start later that summer. And that's coming from the Pep Guardiola Barcelona reign, which were treble winners. So, you know,
he's hot.
He's hot, man. They won the Champions League. They won it all. So that's the guy, man. It's a good signing. It's an excellent signing. But who had leaked the story and why at such a sensitive time? 48 hours before the tie against the Spaniard ensemble of superstars? So there's hearsay about maybe Real Madrid knew about it because they put in a bid and it wasn't submitted. They had nothing to lose in leaking it, but it's not really known who leaked it. Or no, it was like a Bayern also maybe have leaked it. Who knows? I don't know, but it's not opportune time.
Yeah.
So it seems Klopp, if it was leaked for a reason, whether it was for ill or for not.
Yeah, Klopp was pretty distraught about the whole thing. But just to go off of that paragraph, that turned out to be the mistake of the century, and Klopp had foreseen it.
Yeah.
He knew, he was 100% convinced that the lad was making an error. It hurt him. The kid he had brought through was leaving. He told him it was a mistake in a meeting, just the two of them. We met with him and his agent too. Klopp repeated, "You're making a mistake," but the decision was made. That played a lot on Klopp's mind, but in the sense that he was worried about Mario, not about the team. And that was just a good glimpse of like how Klopp was genuinely worried, but also just worried about Mario's development as a player, I guess, because like I think he understood like he was already kind of protecting Mario with subbing him off in that one game.
Yeah.
And I mean, just to kind of after Mario went to Bayern, like the expectations of him being the wonder kid kind of hit him in the face and really kind of stunted his
his growth.
Maybe his growth as like maybe a really, really good player. But
and it's a completely different system than what was causing him to have success.
And not to take anything away from him learning what he learned at Bayern under Pep, because he did admit he learned quite a bit. But I really think Klopp was looking out for him as a person when he was at Dortmund and making sure that he could develop into like maybe one of the better players in the world.
Now, the year that we're in, he had 16 goals and 14 assists in 44 matches. In his debut Bayern Munich season, it was 15 goals, 13 assists in 45 matches. The next year, the same amount of goals, but 10 less assists. And then down from there, and then a return to Dortmund. But his career was that 15 goal 3. That was the last double-digit goal season he ever had.
Yeah.
Until one season in the Dutch league, but not in the Bundesliga.
Or at a very high level.
But you got to look at it like Guardiola is the hot coach, man. He coached Messi. This guy's got the answers. Obviously, there's probably not any love lost for Klopp. I think if you know what Klopp is going to go on to be, then you don't leave. But that's just hindsight speaking, obviously.
Yeah.
And then I'd be wondering. I'm sure he doesn't regret anything in that sense in the total scheme of things. So imagine you're offered a more prolific, maybe some more successes at your club. You win some trophies with Dortmund. Maybe you win the Champions League with Dortmund. Do you trade that for the way your career ended up, but you scored the winner in the World Cup final against Argentina's Messi? He will always have that. And I think I take the World Cup winner. That's the goal.
In this timeline that we know for sure, yeah.
I don't know how he feels, but I mean, I don't know. That's the goal that every soccer fan dreams of.
Yeah. Especially the one that he
in extra time, I score the winner that wins the World Cup for my country. It does not get any better than that, I don't say. But obviously, the years go on and there's a lot more club soccer to play, but at least all of Germany owes him their gratitude.
Yeah.
Because you're just a kid, man. You're making decisions, and you're all struck by Guardiola probably, and Klopp doesn't have the all-strucking stardom just yet. It's tough. It's tough. You make mistakes. But obviously, as Klopp would say, there's a reason for everything, and maybe that reason was to go win the World Cup. Having sown passion for almost 4 years, Klopp reaped pandemonium, and this is the night of the game. We're back to the game. I'll read one before that. I explained to Mario that people will definitely not forget him moving to Bayern Munich, Klopp said after the final whistle, but they will be busy with other things tonight because the club is the most important thing. Fortunately, that's what happened. The atmosphere put everything I've ever experienced into the shade. Having sown his own passion for almost 4 years, as the rain continues to pile up in our environment around us. Klopp reaped pandemonium that night. Madrid were buried under the deluge of screams and attacks, barely escaping with their footballing lives after an epic 4-1 drubbing. Neither Götze or his teammates had been adversely affected by the story, as Dortmund completed a hugely impressive Bundesliga double over La Liga. Bayern had beaten Barcelona 4-0 in their first leg. A showdown in the final in North London beckoned. More bad blood too. Robert Lewandowski, scorer of all 4 goals against the Spaniards, had agreed terms with Bayern to accompany Götze on his move to the Allianz Arena. It was probably a lot easier to convince Lewandowski. I go and score. I score more here. I go. Probably more of how it went.
Robotic decision making.
But it's just crazy. It's just the fact that it's Bayern. It's one thing if you're you buy the Dortmund players and you're not the direct rival.
It would still feel like he has. I don't know.
I think it's tough. This doesn't happen. Like, people are like unwilling to sell to their direct rivals now because I think they saw what it did in terms of just enacting another Bayern Munich reign of terror on the Bundesliga. Like, we can't.
Which it really, really did.
Just Lewandowski, a goal a game every year until he left.
Except for that one game where he scored 9.
Right. I just meant like if the stats average out.
Yeah. Which Pep couldn't even believe.
But look at this. We're in the Champions League final. Klopp diffused the situation with self-deprecating humor, reminding reporters at the Signal Iduna Park that he too had scored 4 goals at a game once at Erfurt. But deep down, he was much more troubled than he let on. But Robert is a professional, like very few others. He's not the emotional type. He'll never kiss the badge, as we had said, but to have him in your team is a gift. He's like a machine. Nevertheless, Klopp was quite annoyed with how the things went down. All of us were angrier and more upset that we lost these players than we let on. Once you admit that, people immediately accuse you of moaning. But there was no time for that. This was the first ever all-German final in the Champions League.
Yeah, I have this underlined.
So we only got about a page and a half left here, so we're at the final conclusion as the rain builds and adds drama, trying to just use it and not use it as a distraction. It's Helm's Deep.
Dude, the first sentence is just, or the second sentence, just, there was no time for that on May 2013. History beckoned. Dortmund versus Bayern, a Bundesliga derby on the hallowed turf of Wembley. Wembley is such a special place. German football has arrived in the present after learning from the past, cheered the Süddeutsche Zeitung, which is the South German newspaper, outlining how both teams' tactical sophistication, inspired by the great historical sides Ajax, Milan, Barcelona, had taken them to a first ever all-German club final in the Champions League. Klopp's injection of energy, in particular, informed a new German school of football. He has reinvented the old physical game of German teams, feared and despised in equal measure, paired with strategic finesse and tactical maturity. I think the technical maturity was the most true part of that. It's just they have to be able to do the right things, the right time, with the right idea.
And this was, as we were reading through this was like Germany was in like a doll of football. This is a complete turnaround. And you can attribute that a lot to Klopp, man. He created this monster that now he's trying to slay.
Yeah.
There's another plot line, however. The final, Klopp explained to a worldwide audience via his Guardian interview, pitted the most interesting football project in the world, the news story, the special story, against a Bayern side behaving like a James Bond villain.
So true.
We are not the best team in the world, but we can beat the best team in the world, he predicted. Dortmund so nearly did at Wembley. A typical full-throttle Borussia hunted. Oh man, it's coming down.
Yeah, it is a lot.
I don't know how this audio is going to come out, guys, so I just apologize. A typical full-throttle Borussia hunted and harangued Bayern. Bayern took control and created decent goal-scoring opportunities. I remember we should have been 2-0 or 3-0 up in 30 minutes, says Gundogan. This is eerily similar to the last Champions League final against Real Madrid. They could have been 2 or 3-0 up in 30 minutes.
Yes. Yep.
Once Bayern had weathered this first storm, the game slowly drifted away from Dortmund. I think it was impossible for us to keep the same pace after the first 45 minutes. The Bayern storm is here. It has been an incredible high, Bender says. A Mario Mandzukic goal saw Jupp Heynck's team take a 1-0 lead on the hour mark. 80 minutes later, Gundogan equalized from the spot. Dortmund were in it again, but felt aggrieved. 2. Bayern defender Dante, already on a yellow card, was not sent off for fouling Marco Reus in the box. Another grievance of not having VAR at the time, which I always bring up in Liverpool's loss, that Ramos would have been sent off for a yellow against hurting Salah and then elbowing our goalie in the head. He's gone. But it didn't happen. The Storm doesn't like it. This is not how it should have went. The underdog story should have prevailed. Gundogan, referee Rizzoli said, "What do you want? You got a penalty, didn't you?" You don't like to hear that. Bayern, unperturbed, had more energy and class towards the end of the tense nail-biter. Arjen Robben, who has had plenty of Champions League and penalty miss heartbreak, scored the winner in the 89th minute. Klopp and his players were applauded off the pitch by Dortmund fans, a staple of a Klopp team that they stay behind their team. They were gracious losers. We have to respect Bayern's win, the coach said calmly. We shouldn't forget that many teams wanted to get to the final and that Bayern shot half of Europe to pieces on the way here. You know that this is him, now Klopp addressing his players. You know that on a different day with a different referee, you beat them. Which is not to really point the finger at the ref, but to applaud how they played.
Yeah. It was a really good way of saying that.
Mm-hmm. But Klopp didn't over-dramatize it, Subotic says. Remember where we were at the beginning of the season, how far we had come. Did anyone think we would make it to the Champions League final? It's all good, boys. Enjoy the evening. He's the man who sets the mood for the club, for the team, for everybody, especially at such testing times when everybody's looking for a bit of direction. Klopp's philosophical take paved the way for a great post-match party at the Natural History Museum. Josef Schneich says, after a while, nobody was thinking about the defeat anymore. We've always been pretty good at partying. Looking back, Hell wonders if Dortmund's winning at Wembley might have been too much of a fairy tale. Nobody would have liked to see that movie. No, that's wrong. I would have. But
then he goes to change his mind.
Yeah. It would have been unrealistic crap, Klopp told Veerman a little later in an interview for UEFA.com. He wasn't so sure anymore, however. It would have been crazy if we had won the Champions League last season, he said. I think we would have lost our minds. It would have been an incredible story. I would have loved to watch that story if it were a movie. A story like, I don't know, the Cleveland Indians in Major League, the Dortmund Indians. But it really would have been very crazy. So that is why everything is okay. and still very special. And there is still a lot of time for us to win even more.
And that is the end of that chapter.
Yeah.
That Champions League game is one of my favorites to go back to and watch, because you can tell how both sides are just fighting for that trophy, that final game, how they're fighting each other, and just how you do kind of see like Dortmund kind of run out of pace to put on Bayern, and how Bayern does come into it. And I mean, it was really special for Bayern to win that game. You can see it, how much it meant to them. I do think it would have been super special if Dortmund won that final, though. That would have changed a lot of things after that.
Obviously, I'd like to continue talking, but title of the book, Bring the Noise. As you can hear behind us, the noise has been brought. This has been Hoeffelhohman FC. I appreciate anybody who is listening through all of this. Please leave a like, subscribe, go out and buy the book, Bring the Noise, the Jürgen Klopp story by Raphael Honigstein. I have not read the next chapter, and if you can still understand what I'm saying, this will be news to Nick as well, as I was going to tell him after this, but I'm just putting it in the recording. Going to start uploading every other week, and we're going to try to record as often as possible just so I can come up with a stockpile, and there can just always be a consistency. Thank you again for listening.
Yeah, thank you guys.
And goodbye.
Bye.